You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Now with your free and
save big money on Masterforce automotive tools at Menards. Don't get left out in the cold. Easily jumpstart your vehicle with a Masterforce 1500 amp lithium-ion jump starter. It's portable and designed for jump-starting vehicles with engines up to 8 cylinders, has spark-resistant clamps and preheating technology that warms batteries for easier jump starting in extreme cold weather conditions. Get the Masterforce 1500 amp jump starter today for $119.99. Sale price good through December 15th.
eligibility for coverage in minutes at TryLifeMD.com. That's TryLifeMD.com.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM hosts Tider Insider TV, Crimson Tide Kickoff, play-by-play for Alabama sports, and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Chase Brumfeld alongside, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. That number is 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904. We'd love to hear from you this morning. We got a good show on tap. We got some headlines to get to, but first, I'm going to let you know, as always, this hour of the Gary Harris Show is being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Discover the heart and soul of our member-owned credit union, empowering our members, enriching our community. Alabama Credit Union is more than just a financial institution. It's a member-owned community deeply rooted in rich historical values. Our central focus is empowering members, driving us to positively impact the community through financial success. We believe in the thriving connection between our members and community. And as a member-owned institution, we prioritize your financial well-being, recognizing you as a valued member with a stake in our success. Together, we're committed to building a future marked by financial security and prosperity, where each member actively shapes the direction of our credit union. That's why it's just a better way of banking. Find out more at alabamacu.com. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership. Then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, we got a great show on tap today. The Coach Ellis Johnson is going to join us, normally with us on Thursday, but he's going to be with us today. Had a conflict for tomorrow, so Coach is with us at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, we've got the new head football coach of the Tuscaloosa County High School Wildcats. Brian Niedermeyer is going to jump on with us. Of course, was the defensive coordinator this past season at County High, and has been on college staffs at Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Miami, coached at St. Thomas Aquinas and down in South Florida, coached at IMG Academy. So great resume for the new head football coach of the Tuscaloosa County High Wildcats. And now I know TCHS is just hoping that he is able to build something there and will stay with it. You know, they've been through so many coaches that they're looking for some stability there in Northport. He'll be with us at 10. Then at 10:30, Larry the Music Man is back. You know, we weren't with you last Wednesday due to technical difficulties, so we haven't heard from Larry in a couple of weeks. He's been to Graceland, man. He's been up there walking with Elvis and, you know, living the good life there. So we'll visit with him about all that. And, of course, as I said, we'll take your phone calls. 205-342-9904 is the number, 205-342-9904. Right now, we hadn't done it in a while, but it's a busy morning. So we're going to go ahead, Chase, and hit them up with some Wednesday morning headlines. Yeah, I hadn't heard that in a while. There's the headline music. As I mentioned, Tuscaloosa County High School announced yesterday afternoon that it's promoted defensive coordinator Brian Niedermeyer to become the school's 26th head football coach. This comes after first-year County High head coach Miles Holcomb resigned following a 1-9 season. That was the only year that he spent at the school. Niedermeyer has previous coaching experience at the college level, most notably as the linebackers coach on Jeremy Pruitt's staff at Tennessee. He was also a graduate assistant at Alabama and Georgia and worked with the linebackers at the University of Miami. He was an assistant at IMG Academy in Florida when he accepted the job as the defensive coordinator at Tuscaloosa County High School. And the interim tag is no longer needed for Chip English. English is now the permanent head football coach at Hoover High School, as he was formally introduced Tuesday evening at a press conference. English led the Bucks as the interim head coach this fall, guiding Hoover to a 10-3 record, and an appearance in the Class 7A semifinals. English has been at Hoover for 2 years now, arriving prior to the 2023 season to be the quarterback's coach under Wade Waldrop. And he was set to be the Bucs offensive coordinator this past fall before taking over the head coaching role after Drew Gilmer was dismissed prior to the season. English, he earned that opportunity there at Hoover. Did a real nice job as the interim head coach this fall. High school basketball is back, and it is big. Last night in Tuscaloosa in Class 7A, we had the number 1 ranked Hillcrest Lady Patriots taking on the number 2 ranked Vestavia Hills Rebels, and this one was all Hillcrest as they got 16 points from Blakely Nixon. They got a game-high 21 points from Joria Branch, and they beat up on the Vestavia Lady Rebels last night, 72-45, the final. In the boys' game, it was much closer and a different result. Vestavia got the win over Hillcrest 46-40 in that game. Congratulations to Bibb County safety Antonio Still. Antonio Still signing with the Troy Trojans. And also, last night, Antonio Langham, former Alabama All-American defensive back, inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Jalen Milroe was named the winner of the Campbell Trophy, and that is a very, very prestigious trophy. And Milroe took that home. And Mike Shula, former Alabama quarterback and head coach, is going to be named the offensive coordinator at South Carolina. And number 1 hoops recruit A.J. Dibansa signs with BYU. Here's the hiccup. Dibansa was recruited by Alabama. He was recruited by North Carolina. He was recruited by others. And he continued the recruiting process. And then yesterday on First Take on ESPN announced his commitment to Brigham Young. And then we came to find out, Chase, that he'd already been signed for 3 weeks. How about that one? Don't know exactly what's going on there. Max Fried signing a huge deal with the Yankees for 8 years. So the Braves going to be short one of their best pitchers. Of course, they knew that was coming, but still, you hate to lose a guy with that kind of talent as a left-handed pitcher. But the Braves looking to get some guys back from injury, including Spencer Strider, and kind of retool their team for 2025. And, of course, Juan Soto leaving the Yankees for the Mets. The Mets were looking to make a splash in free agency, and they were able to do that with Max Fried. So that's a check of headlines. We're off and running on the Gary Harris Show. It's 11 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, and Jim's kind of become our leadoff guy, keeping it in a baseball vernacular. Jim is leading off for us, batting 1,000. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
All right. If you're head coach of Alabama's football team, do you want Milroe to come back if you had your choice?
If you're the head coach at Alabama, do you want him to come back?
Yeah, and considering, too, the backups, what that could cause the backups to do. I mean, everybody else.
Jim, I don't know, because that's just, it's impossible for me to answer that because I'm not the head coach, and I don't know, what their situation is or what they're looking to get done. My feeling is Jalen's had a marvelous career at Alabama. He's draft eligible. This is just my opinion. My opinion is that he is probably going to go on to the NFL, but I don't know that for a fact. But as far as if I was the head coach, I can't answer that because I don't even really, I've never been a head coach, number one. And again, I don't know what the dynamics are inside that building, what they're looking to do. So I'm sure those discussions will be had by Milroe, his representatives, his family, Coach DeBoer, and Alabama may already know what the plans are for Milroe and guys like Booker and Campbell and those other guys who are draft eligible. So they may have already worked all that out, but I can't really answer that.
Okay, Ty Simpson's a redshirt sophomore, which means he's got 2 years left. If you're Ty Simpson and Milroe declares he's coming back, do you transfer?
Well, you probably would consider it. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm sure you look at all your options. All these players do. I don't. Guys are transferring every day for different reasons. But I'm sure if you're a quarterback and you want an opportunity to compete for a starting job, and there's a 2-year starter that comes back, yeah, I think that would impact your decision. Now, I don't think it's a given that Ty Simpson's going to be the next quarterback at Alabama just because he's the next in line.
Oh, me too. But
he'll have to compete. But I'm sure that whatever Jalen Milroe does will impact those other quarterbacks. Absolutely.
Well, the thing about it, though, if he is going to leave, I mean, any quarterback knows they're going to leave. They shouldn't wait until.
Well, like I said, the team may already the coaching staff may already know. Just because we don't know doesn't mean that they don't know. They may already know exactly
what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for the sake of the backups. In other words, if Milroe knows he's going to leave, the backups,
Well, they may know. That's what I'm saying, Jim. The players on the team may already know. I don't know.
Yeah, that stuff usually don't leak out, though. That's what I don't think that's common, because when this high-profile players is deciding where to go or not, stuff leaks out in the press now. Whether it's military secrets or whatever.
A.J. Divanza signed with Brigham Young 3 weeks ago, and it didn't leak out. Signed with him 3 weeks ago, and Alabama continued recruiting, and other schools did too. So sometimes it doesn't leak out.
And that's what I'm not sure. So anyway, and then going back to Ty Simpson, assume he is the solid number 2 backup. He's got 2 years left. Well, if Milroe stays, Ty's got to be looking over his shoulder at the quarterback to decide, thinking, okay, is he going? He's going to have 1 year under his belt at the next season. So is he going to end up beating?
Right,
that's
sure.
what I was asking.
No, you're right. I mean, listen, if Jalen Milroe were to come back and be the quarterback at Alabama for another year, yeah, it would absolutely impact the other quarterbacks. There's no doubt about it. So, but again, I can't put myself in that position because I'm not, and I don't know, again, what conversations are being had or not had. My feeling is, and again, it's just my opinion, Jim. I have no idea, no inside info. I think Jalen is draft ready. And I think that, coming back for another year of college football, while it might benefit him financially because of the fact that, there's so much money now with NIL, I don't know that it's going to change his draft status. I don't know that there's anything that he's going to be able to put out on video next year that he doesn't already have it on video. And plus, that would be another year that he wouldn't be in the NFL. So, again, I think he's probably ready to go, but I don't know that.
All right. No, y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Jim. Good to hear from you. 9:15, we're off and running here on the Gary Harris Show. If you want to be like Jim and get in on the conversation, 205-342-9904. 205-342-9904 is the number on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, and we would love to hear from you. We've got the Coach Ellis Johnson coming up at 9:30, New County High head football coach Brian Niedermeyer at 10, and, of course, Larry the Music Man at 10:30. The Gary Harris Show is off and running this hour, being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. We'll be right back.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Wednesday morning. ADPH is reporting an increased number of dog bites in Lamar County, 33 so far this year. That has prompted Vernon resident Bertie Perkins to ask officials to open an animal shelter. Her request comes after she says a visiting cousin from Florida was bitten multiple times by 2 strays. County officials claim that it would cost $300,000 to operate a shelter annually, which state law requires each county to do. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m., get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free. Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Parallel.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership membership, then join today and feel good about your money.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and out.
What's a corn farmer's favorite dog? A husky.
Some things shouldn't be flat. But with GHX, you can maximize your acres with one flat price. While other brands sell by the bag, we sell seed by the acre to maximize your yield and profit potential. Our custom seed recommendations combine extensive product characterization and agronomic expertise to get the right product, population, and placement, all for one flat price per acre. Learn how at ghxseed.com/connect.
or Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather breezy and colder today, becoming partly to mostly sunny, the high 49. Mostly clear tonight, a freeze likely, the low 29. Tomorrow and Friday, lots of sunshine both days. The high tomorrow 51, the high Friday 56. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 43 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show. Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama. On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:20. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. More on Jalen Milroe winning the 2024 William V. Campbell Trophy. It's just a very, very prestigious award. I'm going to read you a little bit from the press release so you'll get an understanding of how big a deal this is. University of Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe has been named the 35th recipient of the prestigious William V. Campbell Trophy. This, of course, was last night at tonight's 66th National Football Foundation annual awards dinner presented by Las Vegas. The Campbell Trophy ranks as one of college football's most sought-after and competitive awards, recognizing an individual as the absolute best in the country for his combined academic success, football performance, and exemplary leadership. Awarded since 1990, the 24-inch, 25-pound bronze trophy comes with a $25,000 postgraduate scholarship. Jalen Milroe was selected from the impressive list of 16 members of the NFF National Scholar Athlete class presented by Fidelity Investments, who comprise the list of finalists for the Campbell Trophy. Each member of the class claimed an $18,000 scholarship for their postgraduate education. Majoring in management and graduating cum laude last December with a 3.52 GPA, Milroe is currently pursuing a master's in sports management. So not only is a two-time captain on the football team and a tremendous football player, he's also a great academic representative for the University of Alabama, and that's what the Campbell Trophy is all about. So congratulations to Jalen Milroe. I mean, that is a very prestigious award. And the Katy, Texas native now becomes Alabama's second Campbell Trophy winner, joining 2012 recipient Barrett Jones. And he is the school's 7th National Football Foundation National Scholar Athlete. Those include, of course, Barrett Jones, now Milroe, along with Johnny Musso in 1971, Randall Hall in 1974, Stedman Shealy in 1979, D'Amico Ryans in 2005, and Greg McElroy in 2010. So, big deal. Really big deal for Jalen Milroe. Also, as I said, Antonio Langham at that same dinner inducted into the NFF College Football Hall of Fame. Of course, the two-time All-American cornerback at Alabama, played from 90 through 93, was a first-team All-American in 92 and a unanimous All-American in 93. And, of course, it was his, really two interceptions. Now, everybody remembers the one in the SEC championship game that I'll get to in just a moment. But in 1992, that was the first year of the SEC championship game. As Gene Stallings famously said, we were 12-0 and hadn't won anything yet. And they almost got derailed by Florida, which would have been the end of the conference championship games. If a 12-0 Alabama team had lost to Florida and that had knocked them out of the Sugar Bowl against Miami or out of the opportunity to play for the national championship, which it would have, those conference championship games would have been gone. But what a lot of people don't remember is that Alabama played Auburn in the Iron Bowl in Birmingham, and that was a 0-0 game at halftime, Chase. And Auburn, final game for Pat Dye. They were not a great team, but they had a lot of talent. And that was a 0-0 game. And in the third quarter, Auburn was moving the football out at nearly midfield when Stan White threw an out route. Antonio Langham jumped the coverage, tipped the ball up in the air, grabbed it, and went back for a pick six in that game. And that led Alabama then to a 17-0 victory. They shut out Auburn. Alabama's defense was incredible that year in 92. But that play kind of turned the tide. And then in the SEC championship game, Alabama led 21-7. But Florida came back to tie it 21-21 and had the ball late in the fourth quarter, as we know. We were looking at the possibility of overtime or a loss, and we know what happened. Antonio Langham intercepted Shane Matthews, returned it for a touchdown. Alabama won the game and went on to destroy Miami for the national championship in the Sugar Bowl. Number 1 ranked Miami. Alabama was number 2. The Tide wasn't ranked number 1 that season until they won it all. But Antonio Langham played a big, big part in that. And like I said, too, at the top, Mike Shula, a lot of former Alabama players in the news. Former Crimson Tide quarterback and head coach is going to be named the offensive coordinator at South Carolina. He was on that staff this past season, but their offensive coordinator left to take the job at Appalachian State, and now Shula being promoted to OC. Let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park and North River Hotline and talk to Philip. Good morning, Philip.
Hey, Gary. Hope you're doing good, man.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I was just following up on a remark I had a few minutes ago with Barry and Wimp. And back in the summertime, Josh Pate, who I like a lot, he mentioned that regarding the NIL and the portal and collectives and all this stuff that's going on now in college football and college sports, period. Josh's attitude was things are going to get worse before they get better. And I agree with that. But where do you think we are now on that scale as far as the needle is to the getting better mark? Do you think we're making progress, or do you think things are getting way worse?
Let me just say this, and I think I said it on the show yesterday. I think what college football looks like right now and what it looks like in 5 years, just like this, what it looks like now and what it looked like 5 years ago there's nothing hardly similar about it. I think in 5 years it's going to be completely different. And I do agree with Josh Pate that it's getting worse, and it's going to get worse before it gets better, because right now it is just the wild, wild west. I mean, there's just nothing in place. I mean, you got teams getting ready for playoffs and bowl games, and we even read it on the internet. We don't think, a freshman defensive end at South Carolina, Dylan Stewart, negotiates a new deal. I mean, this is like pro sports, and yet there are no contracts. There are no. They're not employees. They're not. So, I think that there's got to be, and I continue to say this, at some point, some type of rules and regulations put in place. The problem is right now, this is, we let the genie out of the bottle, and it's just running amok. And, the games are good. The ratings are good. People are excited about the playoff and the postseason. And so it's like people are just going with it. It's like, yeah, this is not ideal. Coaches it's not ideal that we're having to deal with a signing day and a portal, and for 12 teams a playoff, and for other teams a bowl game and roster management all at the same time. And you don't know who's going to be playing in your bowl game, and you don't know who's going to be back next year. And you got guys that had a good year for you that are already in the office wanting to renegotiate their deal. So I think it's a mess. I've said this before, Philip. I mean, just because on the surface everything looks calm and it's smooth and the boat's just sailing along with no issues doesn't mean that, there's not a storm brewing. And, and just because it's calm now doesn't mean that water's going to stay calm. The way I view this is I just don't think this can sustain. And whether it's, a lawsuit that a player brings, which we already had that at the University of Florida with a quarterback, against the school saying that they welched on their agreement, or you have a school who just pulls out and says, you know what, we're no longer paying these outrageous salaries. We're going to put a plan in place to pay each player a certain amount of money. Something's going to happen that's going to change the direction of how this is headed, I think. And at that point, we're going to maybe eventually, whether it's Congress or whether it's the NCAA or whether it's the schools themselves, going to have something in place. I think eventually they're going to be employees. I think, too, Philip, that these athletic departments will always operate under the umbrella of a university, but I'm not so sure that they won't be like auxiliaries. They kind of already are to some extent, just have their own operating system, and they'll wear the jerseys for the school, but the whole deal with classes and the academic aspect for student athletes might be different than it is for other students. And, there'll be contracts involved. And those contracts will have to be honored by both sides. And if they're not, they'll have a lawyer involved. I mean, I just can't see that we can just continue. Well, you signed with us last year and we offered you, $200,000 to sign with us. And now after your first season, you want $2 million. I just, and if every player that's good wants $2 million, then obviously you can't pay them all $2 million. There's no way. So it may take one school just saying, we're not doing this. Who knows? I don't know. But, yeah, I think that if you want to say it's going to get worse before it gets better, I don't know if I would term it like that. Because, again, most people would sit here and tell you there's nothing wrong. I mean, I turn on the TV and the radio every day, and I'm a part of it. And I hear people saying, oh, this is great. This is the best. This is what we wanted. Players are finally benefiting. And they act like there are no issues. But I think you and I both know there are issues that are brewing that at some point it's going to come to a head. But until it does, I think they'll just let it rock along like it is.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting, and we're bound to start hearing some of these stories, I think, pretty soon, and I'm surprised we haven't. But when tax season rolls around, I think that's when you could start hearing some stories, because there are going to be some of these guys that are going to be having to start paying some humongous tax bills.
Well, they already should be. And I'll just say this again, I don't know, because there are no contracts, and I don't know how they're, if they're just 1099ing these people, but I promise you the IRS is keeping an eye on it. And if you've got one of these young men or young ladies that are making money and their parents are, they don't have an accountant and they're just taking that money in and there's no money going back to Uncle Sam, that'll be found out as well. IRS is going to get theirs. So, yeah, there's all kinds of issues they're dealing with, Philip. And this thing just happened literally overnight, man. We went from a system that had been in place for over 100 years.
This holiday, give a gift as unique as your child's dreams. An iSave 529 plan. It's the perfect present for any future. Register by December 31st at iowa529contest.com for your chance to win an account contribution.
30958.
Fair pricing is what we do. Taylor Electric, we are here for you.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour.
Makes sense for your business.
Go to townsquarelocal.com for a free demo of the Townsquare Business Management Platform. Visit townsquarelocal.com. That's townsquarelocal.com.
Follow the Crimson Tide on their journey to another national championship.
Touchdown, Alabama!
On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
back into the Gary Harris Show, and it's time for the Coach Ellis Johnson breaking down SEC and college football for us. And now, of course, the regular season is in the books. College football playoff is coming up. Bowl season is coming up. And, wow, there's a lot to cover. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Gary.
Hey, let's start with, before we look at the playoff and who's in and who's not, let's start with that SEC championship game. What an entertaining game. I mean, it was something I thought for Georgia to go into Austin and hand Texas its only loss of the season. But then in the rematch, to get your quarterback, Carson Beck, knocked out right before the end of halftime, and Gunnar Stockton, who had not played a lot, to come in. And I guess that's why Georgia's where they're at right now, just a tough, physical, hard-nosed football team. I thought in a lot of ways they played better with Gunnar Stockton in the second half, certainly with the running game. And they beat Texas again, Coach, to get the SEC championship.
Yep, I mean, they kind of found out a little bit more who they are when they had to put the quarterback in there that couldn't throw as well. And I thought Etienne deserved a lot of accolades for coming in, and he put some great runs on the board. They've been missing him off and on all year, and I think that made a lot of difference. But I hope Beck can get healthy. It'll make a huge difference if they don't have him full speed going into the playoffs. But they really did. I don't know how you could manage a football game better than Kirby did, considering all those problems to overcome.
I'm with you. I thought he did. And you know what? Wouldn't it be something, because it could happen. The way the bracket set up, wouldn't it be something if Texas and Georgia met for a third time for the national championship? Wouldn't that be wild?
It would. I kind of, about 6 weeks ago, I saw that coming with Texas and Texas A&M, but A&M faded and, of course, won in the picture. But it really could easily be that. And I don't know if you could get two better teams.
The ACC championship game that night in Charlotte, again, we'll get to this as a follow-up. It couldn't have gone worse for Alabama. I mean, Alabama, if SMU wins, Alabama's in. If Clemson goes ahead and wins that game handily like they might, Alabama's in. But Clemson jumped out fast, had a 17-point lead going to the fourth quarter. Give SMU credit. They come back and tie it up. Although it's remarkable to me, they tied up with 16 seconds and can't get it to overtime. They give up a kick return and a 20-yard reception, and the kid knocks through a 56-yard field goal. It was an amazing game. I think the emotion got to the committee a little bit, but SEC versus ACC, I'll take the SEC all day. But those were two good football teams, and they played a heck of a game. It was a fun game, exciting game to watch.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And Clemson's problem this year is that big running back Moffa got banged up. He's still not healthy. And he's just not the powerful back he is. And without him in that running game, the running game scheme-wise is just not a very physical running game. So their problems against South Carolina and almost losing this game is that they can't finish a game when they have it under control. Too many 3-and-outs, throwing incomplete passes. The punt exchanges in the late in the game were not good for them, losing field position. So they've got to find a running game moving forward. SMU, I think they're a very balanced football team, both O and D. And then they played really good run defense this year, but I don't think they've faced any competition close to what they're getting ready to face running through these playoffs. But they, like you said, they lost the ball game early on with turnovers and self-inflicted wounds. And Clemson did a good job taking advantage of it.
All right, so that led us to where we're at, and I'm going to put you on the spot here just to see what you think about how it all played out. I really thought that the Big Ten and the SEC both were going to get 4 teams in the playoff. I just thought that's the way it would go. I just kind of almost thought it was predetermined. And again, I'm biased toward the SEC. Coach, you may not agree with me at all. I think the ACC is a one-bid league. That's just the way I view it. And I think that game that was played in Charlotte should have been for the one spot. People keep saying Alabama had a chance to play their way in. Well, SMU had a chance to play their way in too, and they got beat by a 3-loss team and still got in the playoff. I thought if the Big Ten gets 4 teams, the SEC should get 4. Now all of a sudden the SEC only gets 1 more than the ACC, and Alabama's of course on the outside looking in. Again, I'm not saying they didn't lose at Vanderbilt. Obviously they did. They lost at Oklahoma. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about your body of work. And I thought Alabama at 9-3 in the SEC was more attractive than SMU at 11-2. I would have taken the Tide. How did you think about the way it played out? And do you think that the committee got it right?
Well, it's two different questions. The committee basically got it right, but they got it right under the stipulations that were in place, which are not good. They need to go back and look at the way they're picking the teams. And everybody can say, we need to go to 16. Not going to fix anything. The problem is how they're selecting the teams. I don't think that Alabama's beef, if you will, should be toward Clemson or SMU. I think it's the automatic conference bids that are putting people in and seeding them in much, much higher than they deserve. So I don't know how to fix it, but I know they need to look at it and start finding out the issues, because the committee just did what the stipulations said. Where I saw it coming, Gary, is when they moved SMU up, was it number 6 or 8, 2 weeks before? And when they put them way up there, I think maybe an 8, I don't know.
They were in the top 10, that's for sure.
Up. Yeah. Yeah, they were way up there, though. I mean, they could easily gotten 11 or something like that. So when you lose a close ball game, you fall out. But they protected SMU by putting them way up in the top 10. I think it was 8, but it could have been even higher. And so a close loss on the last second field goal, it's hard to drop somebody 6 spots or 5 spots. So, I could see it coming, but I totally agree they don't have the best 12 teams in. And then that's just my opinion. Another person may say they got the best 12, but I don't think they did. And I don't think it was just the Clemson game that caused it. I think it's these automatic conference bids for other conferences too.
And also the seeding issue. I mean, I understand if you want to guarantee a conference a champion a spot, but to give them a top 4 seed, I mean, again, nothing against Arizona State and Boise State, but when you look up and you see, wow, they've got buys, exactly. that gets your attention too, Coach.
Yeah, and it's not just that it's giving them a huge advantage, which I think it does, but they're pitting some teams against each other in these early games that are legit teams that could make it through the whole thing. And 2 of them are going to be off the board as soon as the first round's over. And they're not going to be able to compete with those guys because they got the bye. So the automatic conference bids, I think they probably have a hard time throwing that out. They're going to have an uprising from all the group of 5 if they do that. But on the other hand, they've got to stop the seeding, with putting those conference teams in the seeds. Understood why they did it when all was being conceived, just like they were trying to kiss the bowls on the cheek and include them in the playoff rounds and all that, keep everybody happy so that they could get this thing formulated. But now that it's happened, I think most all of us agree, maybe not on every single point, but we all agree this is not the best 12 football teams in the country.
When we look at the playoff, the competition, obviously, between the Big Ten and the SEC is real, and the SEC has dominated the BCS and the college football playoff. Now, Michigan did win it last year, but there's no doubt. I mean, if you've got 4 teams like the Big Ten and the SEC has 3, that's an advantage for the Big Ten to win a national championship in this playoff. I mean, there's no way around that, is there, Coach?
Absolutely. My opinion on the thing is that the Big Ten is top-heavy. Their last 5 or 6 teams are not very good, and therefore, when people like Indiana didn't have to play some more of the heavyweights, they came in there at 10-1 or 11-1, and they looked like a great team. And I don't think they've been tested. They got tested one weekend, and Ohio State was close to routing them. So I think that's the problem. Now, the SEC is tougher top to bottom, but I don't think the SEC was that good this year. I don't mean from the speed and physicality standpoint. I think they still were from that standpoint. But they had a lot of quarterback issues across the league. And when you don't have a real good quarterback that plays every week, it can make a lot of difference in the performance of the team. The talent level can overcome some of it, and it did for Georgia the other night. But, every team in the SEC, other than about 2, had their quarterback get hurt or were dealing with a young quarterback early in the year that had to mature, or they lost the quarterback in a critical game. So I don't know if it was a great year, but I just can't imagine there are not 4 SEC teams they're in the best 12 in the nation. We both know that. But I don't see that the committee is who's to blame, because the whole setup is flawed right now.
Coach Ellis Johnson with us here talking CFP, SEC football. All right, when you look at the bracket, and again, you got 4 teams that have byes. We'll have games, starting next weekend. So they're right around the corner on the 19th and 20th. We're going to have some football. Who's your pick? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but, who do you think is going to wind up coming through this and winning it all? Who do you like?
I'd have to say Oregon right now.
Yeah, they're both pretty good.
I've looked at all the schedules, kind of looked at who's got the balance. I will say this, their defense is not as highly ranked as about 7 other teams in this thing. So I'm a big believer, Gary, in points allowed. They call it scoring defense, but it ought to be called points allowed, because the way college stats are done, points can be scored on defense, and they go against the other team can score on defense, and the other team gets credit for the offense scoring points. So I don't think that's always a good mark. Plus, the scoring defense indicates something about field position, kicking game, turnovers, all of the things that contribute to winning a ball game. They're sort of hidden somewhere in scoring defense. So I look at it from that standpoint, and that's the only thing that concerns me a little bit, is they're not up there in the top 10 in scoring defense. In fact, I'm not sure where they're almost down to around 20. But other than that, they've been the most consistent, and they played almost as many top 25 teams and beaten them as anybody except Georgia. And so right now I'd go with them. I think Georgia's the best team, but they're beat up.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know if they're going to have all. I don't know if they're going to have all their guys. Even if they do, hell, I don't know how they did what they did this last game when they just played 5 overtimes 6 days early.
8 overtimes. It was 8, Coach.
8. I must have fell asleep and missed 3.
It was.
But it's amazing.
Yeah,
those guys are tired.
It was 1 short of the 9 overtime record. So yeah, I'm with you. It's just a really tough group. And Kirby, man, what an incredible head coach he is. All right, let's get to Alabama. Obviously, a ton of disappointment here not on Sunday. I think most people felt like on Saturday night after that ACC championship game, and with all the people that were politicking for SMU, I think you could read the tea leaves and feel like this is what was coming. But still, confirmed on Sunday, you think you're going to be in the playoff, and suddenly you're not. And you've got to now get ready to play a bowl game New Year's Eve in Tampa against Michigan in the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's 2 blue blood programs, rematch of last year's college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl, but it's not a college football playoff game. And you got players going in the portal. You got to worry about opt-outs. With where we're at in the landscape, it's interesting. A team like South Carolina is excited to be playing in a bowl. I get it. There are other teams that the bowl is a payoff. But for a program like Alabama, it doesn't feel that way. If you're this coaching staff, how do you get these guys excited, and how tough is it to coach a team that may not be feeling great about playing in a bowl game as compared to one that would be excited to get in it? Although I think they should be. I think a game's a game regardless, but you know where I'm going with this. There may be some of these guys that aren't too pumped up about this.
Well, it is a tough job, and I don't know what coaches do other than do what they do every week. And that's, get them prepared and try to motivate them to play. It's going to have to originate in the locker room. And this would be a concern for me because throughout the entire season, I've only said one thing about Alabama. They don't look like a consistently focused bunch of players. It started with the Georgia game. And then, which they almost, never mind, they were just up and down. And then they lose to a couple of teams and aren't even top 25 teams now. So they have one of the best seasons at beating ranked teams, but then they lose to people they shouldn't be losing
right.
to. And that kind of says this is not a focused, mature, consistent bunch of kids, whether it's coming from the staff or coming from the coaching turnover or coming from all the portal guys or coming from wherever. It's got to originate in the locker room if you're going to have good leadership. I obviously don't have access to knowing who's already opting out or who's going out early for the draft and all that kind of stuff. But, it could be an issue. And then you got Michigan coming off one of the biggest wins they've had. And they're a very, very disappointing season for them. but they just beat Ohio State on Ohio State's field. And they will be a tough out for Alabama if they're not focused and ready to play.
Does it help Alabama that it is Michigan and it's another blue blood, and they are the team that knocked you out of the playoff last year, and you've got that, maize and blue against that crimson and white? The opponent maybe is something you can use to get this team fired up to play?
Yeah, I certainly don't think it hurts. I think it does help that they've got a legit national power who just didn't have a great season this year, that they're getting ready to play.
So who do you like in that bowl game? I don't know. Again, we're going forward with you. How often we'll have you on? I do want to get you on again, I think. But right now, while we're talking Alabama and Michigan, I know it's 3 weeks out. But who do you see winning that game?
Yeah, Alabama's got too much firepower if they all show up, and Michigan's had a hard time scoring points this year. I think Alabama's obviously a better football team, but I don't know that they play that way every week. So it's hard to pick it. But if you want to know who's got the best team, it's Alabama.
All right, before we close this out, we got a couple minutes. We are where we're at, and I had a good call from Philip earlier wanting to know, how bad is it going to get with all that's going on? And I read this morning that Dylan Stewart, the outstanding freshman edge rusher from South Carolina, and the way the story was just phrased is just the way it is. He negotiated himself a new deal to stay at South Carolina for between $1 million and $1.5 million. Where we're at is where we're at. But again, and you and I've discussed this, I don't know that anything will be done until this just gets where we can't handle it anymore. The genie's out of the bottle and it's running wild. But negotiating new deals, you just finished the season. There's some players they're talking about might not even participate in the playoff unless they get, their deal redone. We're going to have to at some point, Coach, have contracts, make these people employees. I mean, it just can't sustain itself like this forever, can it? It's just crazy.
Well, I mean, what did he do? He signed a new deal with who?
With South
signed
Carolina.
a new deal with Garnet.
Yeah, he stayed at South Carolina,
Trust,
but it's just wild. You see a freshman defensive end, negotiated a new deal, and we're not even done with the season. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, before we even play in the bowl game, he's walking in there and saying, "I got to have more money, or I'm out of here."
Well, and that just tells you that other people out there put money on the table.
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard from 3 different sources that Auburn's trying to buy Sellers, quarterback at Carolina.
Wow.
And he obviously is worth more money than Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
To that football team.
No doubt.
So I don't know whether. So it tells me that Stewart must have gone in and said, "Coach, I don't want to leave, but here's what I've got at State Tech University." And it probably, Dylan's a Maryland kid. He's from up there in D.C. Sellers is a local kid. Sellers will not want to leave. But if somebody puts enough money there, then South Carolina's going to have to put it on the table too. At some point in time, places like South Carolina cannot match the Texas schools and the Big Ten schools, some of those that have so much wealth. Where it's going to stop, Gary, I don't know. I mean, the fact that they've let it get to where it is tells me that they don't know either. I mean, it's just nobody has an answer for this because they didn't address it correctly in the beginning.
Jeez. Gonna have to. Yeah, they didn't. They let it get out of hand, and didn't get something in place to kind of make this a little smoother. But it's where it's at now. But don't you think?
I'm all for paying players.
Don't you?
I'm all for paying players. I think they deserve money. But what's happening now? The collectives came because all the coaches knew that if the players went out and found their NILs on their own, it was going to be unbalanced. And some of the other kids will get upset. Well, we're back to that again. Now the big-time players are going in. They're telling the collective, I got to have $1 million to stay. And the other kid, if 3 lockers down, he's getting $150,000 a year. And, I mean, they're back to the same problem that they had. So I don't know how they're going to control it. But right now, it's out of control, and the players are in charge of everything.
They are. I'll tell you this, though. South Carolina's got to pay whatever it takes to keep Lenore Sellers. I mean, he's the future and the present for that program, but he is a good one. Hey, thank you, Coach.
Enjoyed it, Gary.
All right, 9:54. We'll come back and wrap up hour number 1 right after this.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care, for a Thursday edition of the program. That means it's time for recruiting news with Xavier. We'll break down the Alabama class a week later. We'll begin the conversation around where they go in the portal. We'll also continue the conversation from this week regarding Alabama's transfer portal, its coaching staff, and a whole lot more at the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after.
Better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather breezy and colder today, becoming partly to mostly sunny, the high 49. Mostly clear tonight, a freeze likely, the low 29. Tomorrow and Friday, lots of sunshine both days. The high tomorrow 51, the high Friday 56. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 44 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:58. That's going to wrap it up for hour number one. It's been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Hour number two is on the way. We're going to get it started with new Tuscaloosa County High head football coach Brian Niedermeyer. So keep it dialed in for another hour of great sports talk on the Gary Harris Show.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Steve DeSager.
Two games in the NBA Cup quarterfinals. Milwaukee beat Orlando 114-109. Giannis Antetokounmpo with 37 points. Then at Oklahoma City, the Thunder eliminated Dallas 118-104. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 39 points. The two other quarterfinals are on Wednesday. Kawhi Leonard practiced with the Clippers for the first time this season after knee inflammation. Two games in men's college basketball at Madison Square Garden. Number one Tennessee stayed undefeated, beating Miami 75-62. Then Arkansas came back to upset number 14 Michigan 89-87. Illinois down number 20 ranked Wisconsin 86-80. In an NHL late game, Minnesota won in a shootout at Utah. Earlier, Toronto came back.
Houses the brand new Southern Comfort Food Company. It also houses Finney's Pub, Ramajamas, Liza Sweet Shop and Pizzeria, and you can learn more at venuetuscaloosa.com.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome into hour number two of the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama sports. Of course, you can download the app and listen to us there, or we stream live at Tide109.com. We're going to kick off this second hour with the new head football coach of the Tuscaloosa County High Wildcats, Brian Niedermeyer. Spent this past season as the defensive coordinator there for the school. Miles Holcomb resigned after one season, and Brian Niedermeyer yesterday named the new head coach of the Wildcats. Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Doing well, Gary. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to have you on. And good news is that you're not new. You've been with this program. You've been through a football season because you kind of know what you're up against in Class 7A Region 3. It is no picnic for sure. Is it an advantage already being on the staff and now taking over as head coach?
Huge advantage. I think you know the lay of the land. You know what a great community and what a great school it is, and being able to understand that and move forward, I think you're ahead of the curve.
You know that it's been a tough go for County High with keeping a coach. It's just been a revolving door of head coaches, and that makes it hard to build any kind of continuity, any kind of, chemistry, and not just at the high school level, but in your feeder programs. One coach comes in and wants to do it one way and sets it up, then he leaves. Another one comes in. I know that, you're taking over this position, and I'll just ask you point blank, is this a job that you're looking at as a job that you want to stay with for a while, or like so many coaches before you, or are you going to, be here a couple years and look to move on? What's Brian Niedermeyer's thought process on kind of, this position as far as a long-term gig at Northport?
Gary, I think when you look at Tuscaloosa County High School, I think it starts with the people. Me and my wife love it here. We've got a lot of relationships, and Tuscaloosa, she, obviously grew up here several times with her father coaching at Alabama. I was here at Alabama as a graduate assistant. So Tuscaloosa Northport has a special place in our hearts. We enjoy being here. I think that's the biggest selling point is the community and the people. It's a place you can be for a long time and enjoy it, and we love it here.
Well, that's good. And I know that that's obviously something that when you were in the interview process that I'm sure you were asked about, and that is a big, important process. Part of this process is getting you here and keeping you here. Last season, just one win, and it was a tough year. Where is the roster at right now? Where's the program at right now? What needs to be done? And I know it can't be done in just one season. It is a process, but what needs to be done to get County High to a point where it's competitive in Class 7A Region 3?
I think it starts with, number one, on the field fundamentals. You take it back to basics, and you work on tackling and blocking and everything that goes down to the very basis of the game. And then you look at strength and conditioning, nutrition, and incrementally you improve over time. And I think once you get to setting a standard, or, everybody in football talks about culture. Realistically, culture happens over decades, hundreds of years. But what you do is you create a setting and an environment of what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And once you get that done and you understand, again, you got to understand the community and the people and everybody involved, and you tweak things. But if you do that incrementally over time, you get to be a very competitive and well-oiled machine.
How important is it in terms of coach and when you're building a program, high school level, college level, regardless of having everybody on the same page? You've been at the college level, which we'll talk more about in a moment, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But with administration, with your coaching staff, with like I said, even the junior high coaches, to have everybody aligned and working toward the same goal. Is that something that you need at the high school level as well?
It's always, once you have a great administration, which we have here, everything falls in line. When you go from admin to coaching staff to middle school to youth leagues, when you get everybody in alignment, that's when you find, special programs, and everybody's found them throughout, the United States at different high schools. I was fortunate to be at a couple. So I think that's absolutely important. And it's something that it comes from the top down, and I feel very fortunate that we have the admin that we do here at Tuscaloosa County High School. And I think that's a huge part in any job that anybody takes. If you have the right administration, you're able to, do what you need to do to get all the programs in alignment.
Obviously, you've got some experience in this area, having been at Alabama, and you were at IMG Academy, and you left that position as the defensive coordinator to come to Tuscaloosa County High as an assistant coach, as the defensive coordinator. What drew you here?
Now, number one, obviously, being here before, being in the South, but really extended family and friends. Like I said, my wife grew up here. I mean, we live, close to one of her college roommates. some of these people that are great friends. It's you want your kids to grow up in a community.
Mm-hmm.
You want your kids to be a part of a program. When you're at IMG, you go into work, you get there at 7, you leave at 4, and you don't see each other again the next day. There's no fans of the game. There's nothing there. It is truly a 9 to 5, a 7 to 3 job that you clock in and clock out. And, you build relationships with the few players on the team, which I had great kids and I love them to death. But beyond that, there's no sense of community. There's nothing, the kids don't come to the office. You're not really in a football program. And I think when you want to raise children, you want to be in a great place. Would you rather live, in Northport, Alabama, or would you rather live in, Tampa, Florida? And so, and that's just a personal choice. And again, when you talk about really enjoying a place and loving it, me and my wife have a deep love for this area.
All right, you're 35 years old. You're turning 36, I think, later this month. But you put together quite a resume. You've already, had stops with Miami, Georgia, Alabama, obviously with Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. As we mentioned, IMG Academy, St. Thomas Aquinas. That's a pretty varied resume for a guy who's only 35 years old. Obviously, you'll draw on those experiences. Having coached in the SEC, how much do you think that helps you as a head football coach on the high school level? What did you learn there that you can apply to this position?
Well, number one, I think I've been very lucky to coach for a lot of really good coaches. I've learned a lot of football having coached in the SEC on offense, having coached in the SEC on defense. Obviously working with special teams the entire time as an assistant. You learn a different perspective of the game overall, holistically. The other thing you look at is a management style of, how are we going to coach the kids? How are we going to get them to be better? How are we going to, push the right buttons to make them be at their best? That's something that has been very helpful. The other part is recruiting. Having been to all those places, I'm originally from Alaska. I went to college on the West Coast. I went to a historically black college and university at Arkansas Pine Bluff, which I'm very passionate about. So going from Alaska to all the way to Miami, everywhere in the South, the West Coast, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of people and make a lot of friends. So the recruitment piece is something that excites me. One of our number one goals is to get our kids recruited, to get them the ability to get their college paid for. I know everything's crazy in today's collegiate world of NIL and everything else, but I will say this, I do believe that moving forward, our kids getting their college paid for is one of our number one goals.
Let's talk about the reality of County High situation. And again, I know your job is to make sure that it gets better, but you're in 7A, Region 3 with Hoover, with Thompson, with Hewitt-Trussville. Then, the list goes on and on. I have had a lot of people tell me, well, we just don't have enough athletes at County High to compete with those schools. I know you can't look at it that way, but we know what's going on in some of these bigger schools. We may be even headed toward open enrollment, but we know that players are coming in and moving into certain school systems to play. And you're in a situation right now where, in terms of football players, it doesn't appear when I watch County High play that they've got as many good football players as these teams that you're having to compete against. How do you try to remedy that?
Well, we control the controllables, right? We coach the kids. We get them better. I can't worry about what everybody else is doing. I can't worry about everyone else. All I can worry about is us. And as we get better and move on and work through, that's all I can control. We talk about playing with Hoover, playing with Thompson. When Thompson High School in 2016, 2017 was 5-5. So I don't worry about those things. I just worry about us, worry about our kids, Worry about getting them bigger, faster, stronger, better at football, better people, learning how to be young men, learning how to be fathers. That's all the stuff I can control. So I don't worry about the rest of it.
That makes sense. In terms of your numbers, in terms of, again, getting the feeder programs on the same page, coaching staff-wise, I know you're already there, as we've discussed, but I'm sure there'll be some tweaks and some things that now that you're the head coach that you're going to do differently. What are some things that you feel like are important to maximize the potential of this program?
Nutrition, making sure we're feeding the kids, making sure that they have all the things, equipment-wise to be successful. But also changing the mentality. You talk about County High School, you talk about, when they were successful, they were blue-collar, hardworking, tough. Those are things we put an emphasis on, and I think that will resonate within time, onto the field.
All right. Daryl Williams, you mentioned the administration. Obviously, I know some of the folks up there, and I know how badly that they want to win. And Dominic Ingram as well, your AD. You mentioned the administration. I know that it hasn't happened, although Coach Weingarten did seem to have it going on the right track. But I know how badly they want to win, and clearly you feel good about the people around you, or you wouldn't have accepted the job, I'm sure. How important is that you've got an administration that is committed to trying to give you what you need to have a winner there at County High?
If there's anything I've learned in my career is that nothing can be successful without a great administration. And you have to trust those people. And if you don't trust them and you don't know them, then there's nothing you can do, and there's no reason to take a job.
Well said. Coach, listen, man, I appreciate it. I'm going to let you get back to work, but good luck. I know we'll be visiting both on the radio side and on the TV side going forward, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
I appreciate you having me on. Have a great day.
All right, Coach. Brian Niedermeyer with us here on the Gary Harris Show. It's 10:16. Hey, the YMCA of Tuscaloosa is ready for you, and you're ready for the Y. 2300 13th Street. It's not going anywhere. Get by and see them. Let them show you around. You'll love the facility. You'll love the people. You'll love the community of members there. It's a great, great place to work out. I love it. I don't get to go nearly as frequently as I need to. My schedule just makes it tough. But when I'm in there, every time I'm in there, I'm like, Chase, I need to be here every day, man, because I love going to the Y. And even when you don't feel like working out, that I always have said, for me, the hardest part of working out, Chase, you know what it is? Getting to the gym. Just getting there. Once you get there, and when you get to the Y and you see people getting after it, man, you're going to be fired up. 2300 13th Street downtown, YMCATuscaloosa.org, or give them a call, 205-345-9622. All right, we're going to be back. Take some photos.
100.9 will award $500 for the best Christmas light display in West Alabama. To enter, upload your photos to Tide109.com. Merry Christmas from your friends at Taco Casa and Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather breezy and colder today, becoming partly to mostly sunny, the high 49. Mostly clear tonight, a freeze likely, the low 29. Tomorrow and Friday, lots of sunshine both days. The high tomorrow 51, the high Friday 56. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 45 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. We're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, 205-342-9904. Remember, Pinnacle Park at North River, luxury townhomes in a gated community near beautiful Lake Tuscaloosa. Cowboy's waiting to jump on. Hey, Cowboy.
How you doing, Gary?
Doing pretty well.
Hey, you were talking with Ellis Johnson about the guy from South Carolina wanting to get his money renegotiated and all that. Well, I saw there's a player for Florida this morning wanting the same deal, a linebacker at Florida. if he didn't get a certain amount of plays and this and that, he was going to be in the portal and a guaranteed amount of money. I'm not for sure exactly, but this is kind of sad, Gary. But can't complain about it. You just have to live with it. It's professional AAA football now. It's just like the Mississippi State quarterback, Van Buren.
Yeah.
He committed originally to Oregon. So, he got a year of AAA training at Mississippi State. He can transfer to Oregon now and maybe start next year.
Yeah, he's a talented quarterback, and I was a little surprised that Mississippi State didn't try more to keep him, but it looks like they've got their eyes set on Jackson Arnold, who, of course, Jeff Levy's familiar with from Oklahoma.
Isn't it sad, Gary, when you think about it?
No, I don't like it. You know where I stand on it, Cowboy. I think it's – I wish
I could pull this in the real world.
Well, it's just the branding, the idea that in the past, there were transfers, but most of the time when a player was at your school, you pulled for him and he was setting himself up for life after football because of that affiliation, and now. It's like, again, on the NFL games, it's like, some of these guys have been to 3 or 4 or 5 schools. Who claims them, And it's like the quarterback at UAB, got approved for a 7th year of eligibility, and he's transferring to Texas A&M. And I don't know how he's going to beat the kid out there, but that's, it's and two, this eligibility stuff. It's like, you look now and you see sophomore, freshman, junior, graduate student, whatever they may be, master's program, but you don't know for sure really ever how much eligibility they have left, because it's just if you have something happen along during your career that you don't think was fair, or you petition, and it seems like just about every player that petitioned, gets, we're talking about guys playing 7 or 8 years of college football, man. Where does it end?
Right.
And for some of these players, that's why the kid Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, as good a player as he is, he's probably not an NFL prospect. I wouldn't say that he can't play in the NFL, but he's working so hard to try to get another year because he wants to maximize his NIL. You know what I mean? Knowing that if he can't play in the NFL, he may make more money now in college as a football player than he's ever going to make in his professional life. That's a thing too.
Right.
That's why a lot of these guys are looking to stay in college as long as they can, because the ones that are popular at their schools but may not be NFL prospects, their best time to earn is right now, and they're trying to earn as much as they can where they're at. And then if they get another year or two of eligibility, a lot of times they want to jump to another school because that will guarantee them more NIL money. That's what's happening with a lot of these guys. It's just like you're talking about. It isn't just about the school that they're at. I mean, it's like, I'm going to maximize my earning potential wherever that takes me. So and it works both ways too. I mean, there's no doubt these coaching staffs, when they recruit kids, they make promises. A lot of them do. A lot of them tell these kids this and that, and it doesn't come to fruition when they get here. That's why I think at some point you need contracts. You need to have an understanding of what, the player is supposed to provide, what the program is supposed to provide, and get a handle on this, man.
Yeah, it's and then I heard Coach Johnson talking about the Auburn's up there trying to get the South Carolina.
Yeah, he just said that Auburn was trying to get Lenore Sellers. I mean, he just came out and said that.
Well, he's a lot like Cam Newton, so I guess maybe they can get Cam to work on him through back channels.
Well, he's not in the portal, so again, I don't. Ellis said that, not me. I don't know anything about it, but he just came out and said Auburn's trying to get Lenore Sellers. So I know Auburn wants a quarterback, but that's the first I had heard of that.
Our wide receiver at Alabama, I guess he's the best receiver besides Ryan Williams. Bernard, he's a Michigan State, Washington, now Alabama. He's like a hired assassin. Where's his affiliation when he gets out of college? Who knows?
That's what
Maybe
we're talking
Alabama,
about. I think a lot of times, you you feel affiliated with the program. You know, if a guy plays 3 years somewhere or 4 years somewhere, and then he goes plays 1 year somewhere else. I still think he's always going to be affiliated with the school that he played most of his time at, but he's also affiliated with that other school. And, and I hear some of these guys now, I have heard a couple of them when they do those lineups on Sunday Night Football, they've just come out and said it. They've given both schools. And, they've mentioned, I've heard, so-and-so U and so-and-so state. And I guess going forward, you're gonna hear more of that. So it's
that's awesome.
It's wild.
Hey, I asked a question this morning on the other show, but I don't know if it went over to you. I think Wimp Sanderson's basketball teams at Alabama and Jim Larinago's at Miami kind of a lot alike.
All right, tell me exactly why you think that.
Well, Larinaga, he's always kind of close to the Sweet 16 or there, and he did get in the Final Four with Miami. I guess we knocked on the door and didn't get there, but it just seems like they kind of got the same kind of players, and I know Miami's kind of got a losing record right now. Alabama had that one time in 1988 where we had that deal.
Yeah, after McKee had to leave, they would have never had. Witt would have never had a losing record had Derek McKee been allowed to come back. You know that. But he.
I don't know. Maybe it's a bad analogy.
I think when I look at Wimp, a lot of athletes. A lot of really, strong teams. He was an effort coach. He coached effort. He wanted guys to play hard, and really some fine teams. Never really had a dominant center. Wimp didn't. He had a lot of really, as those 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" athletes that could run and jump, but never really had a dominant. Had good post players, but they were usually, the David Benoit's and those type of guys, 6'8", 6'9". Right. But had great success. I could see that. Larinago's kind of an old school coach, and Miami has a lot of athletes. You're right. Don't necessarily have, right now I couldn't probably name you one player on Miami's team. I mean, I know they lost last night, but I thought for what a little bit I saw of the game, I thought they played Tennessee tough for the most part, didn't they?
Yeah, well, Tennessee had them 20, and then Tennessee kind of lost a little intensity. They were only playing with 7 guys. They had some guys hurt. But, Miami give them credit. They cut it back to 7 late, kind of 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game, got back in it. And I don't know, Miami's just got some players like, Alabama got under Wimp, I thought. They had a guy that was from Sugar Land, Texas, that freshman, Nigerian name like Akeem Olajuwon. He's from Sugar Land, and that's where Akeem lives. And he told somebody at Miami about the kid. It looks like he's going to be a pretty good player. So I think that they're finding the same kind of players like Alabama did under Coach Sanderson, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
All right, brother, I got to get the break. I got Larry the Music Man coming up.
All right, it'll be good to hear him, but I appreciate your show. I'm just worried about this.
100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs, 205-553-9460. Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and Larry Butler, Larry the Music Man, he is indeed bad at the bone, and he is back with us. Last week, technical difficulties knocked us off the air, but probably gave Larry more time to put together all of the great details from his trip to Graceland and share them with us this morning. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Gary. It's a good way to start it with some George there.
Absolutely.
Gary, I'm going to have to break this stuff down probably over the next 3 shows. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely. No, we can't get it all in one show. No.
And let me tell you, it was nice to be a tourist for once. It brought back memories going all around and through Tennessee and the states I had played, especially up north. and never had a chance to really absorb what was going on at that time, And May, when she turned on Presley Boulevard, you think she was 6 years old and saw Santa Claus, It was like she started crying. It was like, anyway. But it was a good trip. We did everything in 2.5 days, and believe me, it was a job, but it was an enjoyable job because we made our minds up we were going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
And everything was very well organized. I went in 82. You told me you had taken your mother, and I'm not sure when I went in 82, it was only the mansion,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Street was under construction and Sun Studio was just sitting there empty.
Right.
But, we stayed at the, what they call the guest house. Is actually, a 450 room hotel, and, everything is right in the hotel. All the restaurants, there's, you can order anything you want. It's not tourist gouging. Pricing is real decent. A lot of Presley's dishes are on the menu, of course, you can order, and what he liked. But everything was right there. And then we did our tour at 10 in the morning. And I didn't get to call you because we had to be outside at 9 o'clock. And I'm going to tell you, it was cold.
Yeah, during the cold
And this
snap,
old boy wears shorts in the wintertime. Hey, and so we went to, did the mansion thing, and they shuttled us over there. The guest house, they call it a guest house, but it's probably about a block next to Graceland. Very well landscaped, manicured. I mean, it's beautiful. It kind of reminds you of a real old type hotel in New Orleans or something, or Savannah. You know what I'm saying? It had all that feel to it, that Southern hospitality. And, well, we did that. Then we went across, they shuttled us across the street. When you were there, were the complexes there, what they call the Presley complexes?
No.
That's when the fun started. The plane from the road, from the mansion, all you see is these big blue walls. It looks like warehouses. You can't see nothing but walls. And I'm saying, man, can't wait, and we get in there, and actually it's like a little town, Presley town. Everything is right there that you ever want to see. His car collection, it just goes on and on from the time he was in the Army, all the stuff from that period. His Vegas room, all his jumpsuits he wore in Vegas, all of them in the suit. And she really got emotional with this.
That's
what I was going to comeback special.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you about. We got callers lined up, so because we're going to cover this for several weeks. I was going to ask you, not as much for me, but I got emotional for my mom because, as I said, my mother she's how Elvis fans are. She was one of them. I said, she had a full-size cutout of him in her living room. So wow. I got emotional for her, and I love Elvis too, but it wouldn't have moved me the way it moved her. You know what I mean? So I got emotional because of her emotions for being able to experience Graceland.
Exactly.
Elvis. Yeah. So
May got emotional and I got emotional.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's just mind blowing what you see there. And I'm going to send you photos as we go. And I've got a good shot of that, his suit under glass. But we're putting together a collage because she got 500 photos. And
I know. Again, and this is, like I said, it was, you went much more recent. And I'm trying to remember the exact time frame for me and my mother, my sister, and brother-in-law that were up there. But it's been over 20 years ago, so it's a much different experience. All right, let's get some phone calls for you, Larry. And
sure.
Punch Ragged Glory through first, and then we'll get to Bryce. Hey, Ragged Glory.
Good morning, Gary. Good morning, Larry.
Man, how you doing this morning?
You sort of put a monkey wrench in my gearbox. I love this story. My mother is 88 years old now since I was her 21st birthday present. And she is, huge Elvis. Oh, my goodness. And I don't want to take too much time from your show because there's so much more I want to hear, and we got other callers. And so my train of thought was this morning, for you, Larry, for you, Gary, and for Chase, because I'm sure he was brought up with parents' music. From the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, I sort of kind of cut off at year 2000. Who, in your opinion, was the most talented first three-piece core band? And I'm talking the ones that at least did albums, we bought them, and hits on the radio, so on and so forth. I got several of them lined up as far as what I know of. I'm just curious of your opinion. Who is your favorite and or most talented three-piece guitar, bass, and drums?
Wow, that's a heavy question. Larry, I'll let you start.
Man.
I got to think about that one.
Well,
it's okay. We don't have to even
Cream jumped to mind right off the bat.
Is that Gary?
Yeah, that's Gary. Cream jumped to my mind because of the power and Ginger Baker and Clapton and because
Jack Bruce.
Yeah, Jack Bruce. So you're trying to look at three-piece, and that's the first one to jump to my mind, Larry.
Gary, I'd have to go with that, and I would also say in the prime, I would say Mitch Mitchell, Hendrix, and Noel Redding.
Oh, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, yeah.
Yeah, but that's in the same time period as Cream.
Yeah.
Cream started that power trio, so you really got to give it to them. Hendrix was right there behind them.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned them. Those are two good ones.
Mitch Mitchell's one of the most underrated drummers ever. That's John Bonham's favorite drummer was Mitch Mitchell and Buddy Rich.
That's well, who is yours, Raggy Glory?
Well, here you go. Mark, Don, and Mel.
Bobby Turn Overdrive?
Yeah. Grand Funk.
That's who I meant. I knew.
Well,
I got mixed
I saw them at Atlanta Pop Festival. You're right, but I guess the question was kind of wide open. You got to go to Cream because that's where it started.
Yeah. But Grand Funk, that's
a good choice, man. I love Mark Funk.
Well, you said Mark, I knew it was Grand Funk, and I came out. But I tell you one, a more modern one that just jumped in my head that you guys will appreciate, because I mean, very, very, very just smart. What about the Police?
Oh yeah,
that's more goodness,
more modern.
I actually forgot about them.
Yeah.
Okay,
they're there, but there's some.
Well, you got to. I would go definitely. Shoot, man, Police.
Yeah, and then we're shooting ZZ Top up there.
That buzzed in my mind, but I still got to go in the 70s there, or the late 60s. Let's say 68, 67, 68.
I'm with you. I'm with you on it.
Yeah, Chase was shaking his head on ZZ Top though. That's one. I'm trying to think of some more. Once you get, you're right to have true three pieces. There just aren't that many. You know, we've named some of the really good ones. I'm trying to. Let me ask you guys this. And again, now I'm getting more modern with you. Was it? And listen, I'll say this. They were not my cup of tea. As groundbreaking as they were, but Nirvana was a three-piece.
Yeah, you got to go with Rush too. I mean,
Rush. Got to get Rush in. Golly, I'm so glad you mentioned Rush. Rush is one of my faves now. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm so.
And Gary originally started three-piece Government Mule.
Yeah.
Because they recreated a lot of that old sound in their shows. They would do,
that's
Cream.
I'm glad you asked that, because I never really think about that. But we came up.
That's a good question.
We came up with some good ones, and there's some more I know we're overlooking. But yeah, Rush, man, I can't. I'm shocked I didn't think of Rush. That's
Neil Peart right there. You got he's in the top 10 best ever. Got to be Neil Peart.
That's a brilliant band. All right, we got to make room for some other folks. But Ragged Glory, thanks as always, man.
Hey, tell Chase, hey, let's not forget about Green Day.
That's another
Yeah,
one.
man.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That got his attention, didn't it? Yeah, sure did. Sure did. Thank you, Ragged Glory. We appreciate it. All right, punch Bryce through next, if you don't mind, Chase. Hey, Bryce, and then we'll get to Tom.
Larry, I'm glad that you enjoyed Graceland, but they must have changed all that when I went through there. I'm thinking it's probably been about 8 to 12 years, and I'm trying to remember when I was there.
Yeah,
but
they
I
have
don't
changed it a
remember
lot.
all that you talked about.
Bryce is pretty added on new. And I want to say this: I ate the biggest double cheeseburger at Gladys's Diner that I've ever eaten in my life.
Well, that sounds good.
Oh yeah, hey.
So it wasn't just big; it was good.
No, when I walked in there and saw them 3 black old ladies throwing them big old square hamburger patties down, quarter pounders, I knew it was good. Man, they had it going on. Old fashioned diner. You know, you could stand there after you order and watch them cook it. So,
real quick, I'm gonna change gears. I don't know if y'all have seen, but they've got a movie coming out Christmas Day, Bob Dylan. Now a lot of
Yeah,
people
I
don't
saw
like
that.
Bob Dylan, but I like Bob Dylan. I've always.
I like Bob Dylan for real. I mean, Bryce, I've got another segment coming up about. There's so much to do. I'm not even going to hit Sun and Stacks, but I had a conversation about Travis Womack with the tour guide at Stacks. That's another story. So be listening for that.
The reason why I brought that up about Bob Dylan, Travis told me a story one day. His wife had some kind of, I think it was a thrift store, some kind of clothing store, and Bob Dylan was sitting out front, and some people went in it, and they asked Travis, "Hey, is that Bob Dylan out there?" He said, "Yeah, that's him." You know, everybody was just freaking out because he was up.
Great story.
Well, Bryce, let me ask you, since you've been to Graceland as well, and I've been even longer since you, and based on what Larry said, they give you a lot more access now, a lot more stuff happening on. What did you get? As I said, I got more emotional for my mom than me, but did you get emotional when you toured Graceland?
Well, I was with my ex-wife and my daughter. At the time, I was still married, but I got a real good warm, fuzzy feeling that that's what you want to call.
Yeah. You got to get some butterflies. There's no doubt. That's hallowed ground. If you're a music fan, man, that is. I mean, it's Elvis, dude.
Pretty cool.
What kills me, guys, is when I actually, you hear every now and then you'll hear somebody say they don't like Elvis, and I'm like, oh, okay, are you all right? Or I'll hear them say, Elvis wasn't that great a singer. What?
What?
One of the best.
Let me tell you, Gary. Let me tell you a controversial. In fact, I remember John Lennon. We lost him this past Sunday, but that's another story. But he once said before Elvis, there was nothing. Now that'll make a lot of people mad, but I want y'all to listen to what was being played on the radio before Elvis Presley. Nothing.
That's
it was pitiful compared to what Presley did. You're right. Dewey Phillips played That's All Right for 4 hours straight. That's another story. I've got a lot of good in-depth information to add as we get through December. Yeah. But Elvis Presley started it, man.
He did.
And he was as big. Gary, the black people loved Elvis more than the white people at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's the king, and we talk a lot about the British bands, but you just don't find one of those early '60s British invasion bands that don't cite Elvis as an influence. I mean, it's just. And they'll cite a lot of the, like you said, a lot of the blues bands and things like that. But Elvis is just always mentioned, man.
You just brought up something. One of the rooms we toured was artists influenced by Elvis, and I ain't got time to mention all the modern day artists that were influenced by Elvis. And everybody from Kiss to Dolly Parton, The Dress, the whole thing, man. It's unreal. I think she enjoyed that just about as good as anything. She says, "I can't believe this." I said, "Yeah, you didn't even think about Kiss. Their jumpsuits and stuff was that modern. modeled
you
after
can
Elvis.
see it. Yeah, you can see there. That's another thing, the fashion aspect of it too. Hey, Bryce, I want to make sure we get time for Tom, but wrap it up for us.
One last thing. Now I know Larry knows about this place. There used to be a place in Warner Robins, Georgia. You stop off and Elvis's plane was there. It was some restaurant. Do you remember that, Larry?
Say that again. I didn't hear that.
There's this place in Warner Robins, Georgia, a restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but the guy had Elvis's plane there. Do you remember that? And it might have been one of his cars, but I think
it was his car. It was a car.
Okay.
That's another story. I didn't realize Elvis had as many vehicles as cars he had. It filled up a warehouse.
Well, guys, I appreciate you letting me talk, and I don't want to take none of Tom's music, but Larry, not Larry, but the guy that used to coach SMU was a coach, and he said it best about this Alabama not being in the playoffs. Said you're in a room, and Randy Ross,
yes, on my show, yeah,
and you got a chance to bet against Alabama. Be in a committee. If you're a committee, you're going to always bet against them. And I'll leave it at that, guys.
All right.
Was he on your show or was it somebody else's show?
That was my show yesterday. Randy Ross, who spent 11 years at SMU and 17 at Alabama.
I heard that. That was a good
said it. You got to go with Alabama. All right. Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate you. All right. Punch Tom through, Chase. Hey, Tom.
Gary, I want to go in a different direction if y'all don't mind.
Go ahead.
Larry, how you doing, buddy?
Man, how you been doing, Sheriff? You've been keeping everybody straight the last 2 days on these shows.
My job's cut out for me, Larry, but I want to talk to you about two things, and that's are you familiar with Steve Lucas?
From Toto,
you better believe it. Oh, my Lord. That's a segment there. Top session musician. Toto were nothing but session musicians. Yeah.
I read an article on him last weekend. Do you realize that he's been involved in 5,000 albums?
Yes. He was known as the West Coast, part of the wrecking crew out there on the West Coast. Toto was all studio musicians. They just got together, put the band together. Yeah. And now he's playing with Ringo.
Yeah, and I was going to tell you, he started talking about the Atlanta Pop Festival, and I heard you bring it up there. I hope I don't get nobody in trouble, Larry, but it was some people that showed up that worked for the Grateful Dead in Atlanta. And you know the story about them and their sound system. There was a guy at Cal Berkeley that made LSD in the lab of that college, and he made so much money that he had to do something with his money, so he put his money into buying sound systems for these concerts. But what I wanted to tell you, I got some of that LSD when I was in Atlanta in 1970, and I have never. Did you get a hold of some of that when you were there?
Well, I'm gonna be on. I'm gonna tell you, I was never into drugs, but a playing mate of mine, we went to see Woodstock premiere in Atlanta.
Yeah.
In the theater, and we did half a tab of White Eyes. Of course, you know Isley. He's one of the Grateful Dead, and I never forget it. I stayed up for a day, like 2 days almost. I've never done it again, and never wanted to, but it was quite an experience when I watched Woodstock. I'm telling you.
Well, I was going to tell you, that acid I got was blotter, and it came from that guy at Cal Berkeley. These guys I hooked up with in Atlanta, they brought it with them. They gave me some of it. I have never in my life. That is the best acid I ever dropped, and I was going to see if you. I also, somebody told me that Hendrix was at that. I don't remember it, but they said Hendrix was there, and he threw 1,000 hits of that acid out over the crowd. Do you remember that?
I remember that, and he also that same bunch, when the brothers toured, this is after the Wayne passed, toured with the Grateful Dead, and they spiked their. They got them all messed up before the show. It was one of the worst shows they ever played. Greg and Dickie said they don't even remember getting on the stage.
Hey,
it's the roadies for the Grateful Dead that did it.
Hey, listen, guys, I hate to do it, but Chase is in there giving me the wrap-up sign. But
Gary, thank you so much for letting me be able to do this.
Yeah, Tom, thank you. And you too, Larry. We're going to cover this Elvis trip that Larry made in depth, and we'll just keep talking about it. But, yeah, obviously when people call, we can change. I love that three-piece.
And Gary.
Yeah.
Gary, send me your address. I'll pick you up a little something at the complex. Send me your preferred mailing address.
I sure will. Okay. Thank you, Larry. All right, we got.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We got to get to the break. We'll come back and wrap it up right after this.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Fox Eye Care, for a Thursday edition of the program. That means it's time for recruiting news with Xavier. We'll break down Alabama class a week later. We'll begin the conversation around where they go in the portal. We'll also continue the conversation from this week regarding Alabama's transfer portal, its coaching staff, and a whole lot more.
Town Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The weather breezy and colder today, becoming partly to mostly sunny, the high 49. Mostly clear tonight, a freeze likely, the low 29. Tomorrow and Friday, lots of sunshine both days. The high tomorrow 51, the high Friday 56. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 46 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Catch every game and every moment right here. This is your home of Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good call, Chase. Christmas without you. I do a little Elvis. I'll be so blue. All right. Time flies when you're having fun. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to our listeners. Reminder to catch me on TV tonight with the local sports on WVUA 23. And back here tomorrow for the Thursday edition of the Gary Harris Show at 9 a.m. For Chase Brumfield, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for listening. T-Town Sports Daily is coming up next.
Christmas tree. Thank you for listening